I probably don't need to tell you this, but pickup trucks in America are big business. And that's because they're just such good all-around vehicles. Just like a Toyota Camry, any of these crew cab half-ton domestic trucks can haul your family in total comfort during the week. But then on the weekend, you can take your boat out to the lake and you can even hit the trail and have a little bit of fun. Now, we've run these trucks extensively empty, we've towed with them, but really, we're here to take a look at which one will take you further off-road. So we're kicking things off in the 2018 Ford F-150, and the story here is really more. More power, more towing capacity, and more money. As it sits, our limited model costs about $68,000 US, and that is a pretty significant jump over the rest of these competitors. But you are getting more. You're getting 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque from this 3.5-liter EcoBoost, and the tow rating is over 10,000 pounds at 10,500. Properly equipped, this truck can actually tow up to 13,000, but even still, in our comparison, as they sit as crew cab models with the short beds, this F-150 can definitely tow the most. So when we're talking about driving empty, I think that's one of the Ford's strongest points. It's just smooth and comfortable, and it actually handles quite well. It actually kind of likes diving into corners, unlike the rest of the competition. To see how they all handled the weight, we did hook up a 7,000 pound trailer to all of these half tons. And here in the F-150, the truck handled the weight well, but it really kind of highlighted one of this truck's issues, and that's to do with the tires, and more specifically, the tires in the snow. So as you've seen, we've been dealing with tons of snow during this shoot, and these Pirelli Scorpions that come standard on this limited model, they are M+S rated, so they are supposed to be all seasons. But that's really not quite true. In the snow, they're just slipping all over the place. They don't provide much grip. And when you have 7,000 pounds on the back, like I said, those problems are just amplified. So it really didn't feel all that confident. However, it goes without saying, not everyone's towing in the snow all the time. And I have towed a lot with this truck in all sorts of circumstances. And I mean, the power delivery is the best part. You get just this massive wave of torque that comes on at such a low RPM to get trailers moving. The best thing I can say about the EcoBoost is it doesn't feel like it has to work very hard to move a big load. The other big part of the power equation here is this 10-speed automatic, and I have nothing but good things to say about this transmission. It doesn't hunt for gears. It's absolutely a busy transmission. You can watch it jump all over the place, but you know what? You don't feel it, and that's the most important part. And by far the most impressive thing is the non-sequential gearing. So you're on the highway in 10th, nail the throttle, boom, there's 4th gear, and the thing just takes off. The 10-speed is just incredibly well dialed in, and even though I was skeptical of it, Ford nailed it. All right, so just to be clear, we did look at all aspects of these trucks and we did tow trailers with them, but what I'm really valuing, my winner is gonna be the best one off-road. So let's talk about how this F-150 did in the snow. Now, once again, yes, we didn't know there was gonna be snow here, but that's just how it turned out. So all of our off-roading was done in, almost a foot and a half of snow. Once again, the tires did kind of let this truck down, but that's not quite the full story. So here in the F-150, we're getting 9.4 inches of ground clearance at the axle. That's the most out of any of these three competitors. And it also has the best approach angle at 25.5 degrees. Departure angle measured in at 26 degrees, and the breakover comes in at just 21 degrees, which certainly isn't the best. Now, although on-road, the F-150 did manage to stay pretty smooth, off-road, when you kind of start beating on it, you really do get a lot of chatter in this truck. It becomes very busy. The suspension, which is set up to pull 10,500 pounds, it feels stiff when you head off-road. Now, this is not an FX4 model, so you could get different shocks here, although I'm not sure how much of a difference that would really make if you still have the leaf springs in the back. Another area where the F-150 excels off-road though, and this is the same with towing, is all of the information it gives you. It has an off-road status screen which will show you the angles that the truck is sitting at, but it will also show you your steering angle and the power distribution, so you know if you are in four-wheel auto where the truck is sending the power. And of course, like our other two competitors, this Ford has 4 auto, 4 high, and a 4 load with the proper 2-speed transfer case. And finally, it is worth mentioning that there's an electronic locking differential in the rear end of this truck. Once again, one more thing that will help you pull you out of the snow. And one thing I really like, traction control here is fully defeatable. It has 2 settings. You hit the button, then you hold it. You can really get rid of all the traction nannies, which sometimes is important. So that's pretty much everything on this F-150. Let's jump over into the Chevy Silverado and see how it holds up. So here we are in the 2018 Chevy Silverado. So this truck is the cheapest in our comparison, and it does kind of feel like it. We have an LTZ Z71 model, and granted, you could bump up to the high country. That would be more on par with the other 2 luxury trims we have. Even still, LTZ, you have leather seats and everything, but it just gets this really cheap feeling plastic, and it just doesn't look really all that nice. So I actually find on-road empty, the Silverado is kind of a nice balance between the F-150 and the Ram, where the Ford drives light, the Ram drives heavy, and the Chevy is kind of right in the middle. And that makes it pretty nice. It's a comfortable cruising truck. It's nice and quiet in this interior. And same goes for the steering. The steering is nicely weighted, not too heavy, not too light. So we have to talk about winter driving. We couldn't avoid it on this shoot. On this Silverado, we have Goodyear Wrangler SRAs. Now these are M+S rated tires. Actually, all the tires here are M+S rated, and these ones actually mean it. They feel maybe not quite up to par of a true winter tire, but they give you more than enough grip, and I never felt myself, kind of feeling sketchy in this truck like the Ford does with those Pirellis. And that plays a big part in towing. So as it sits, our Silverado is rated to tow 9,300 pounds. So when we hook the $7,000 up to it, again, when you hook up weight, it just highlights things, whether they're good or bad. On the good side was dynamically, the truck handled the weight quite well. The tires got the power to the ground. However, on the bad side, the big thing, the Chevy is, I would say, the busiest of the 3 while towing. You really feel everything coming through in the back end. You still get kind of some chatter. The truck feels kind of jiggly is the best word I can use. You're really just feeling every little thing in the road, and that also makes it just a little less comfortable as well. On the positive side, and this is kind of a big deal in the snow, one thing I love is my trailer brake controller up here to the left of the steering wheel. It's the best placement for a controller of all of these trucks, and it just makes it so that in an emergency, if my trailer starts fishtailing, back end starts getting loose, I just grab the brake, it's right there, and that's gonna put me on a straight line again. Now, it might not have felt the best, but give Chevrolet a little credit. This is the cheapest truck, and it can tow more than that Ram 1500 can for, significantly less money. However, once we got off-road with it, the Silverado kind of really starts to fall apart. Now, not literally, everything stayed on the truck, but once we got off-road, the 8.9 inches of ground clearance here and the 18-degree approach angle, we were hitting everything. We were crashing through this mud pit, and when the Silverado came out of the pit, the whole front bumper of the truck was just caked, whereas the other trucks kind of made it through unscathed. Again, we have 4 high and 4 low. There's a proper 2-speed T-case here, so if you need that torque, the power, you can get it, and there's a rear locking differential here, but the other 2 trucks have that too. So really, when it comes to leaving the pavement, there's nothing that the Silverado does that the Ram and the Ford can't do. And just like while towing, this had to be the stiffest of the 3 off-road. Especially once you start building up some speed, it kind of punishes you. Okay, 2 down, 1 to go. Let's go hop in the Ram 1500. So finally, here we are on the last of the 3 competitors, the Ram 1500. Now, price-wise, this truck falls right in the middle at just over $59,000. And what we have here is a limited tungsten model. So this is a top-of-the-line luxury truck. So what's interesting is that the Ram, as it sits, was reintroduced around 2009, making it the oldest truck here. But Ram has done a great job of continually adding new technologies like, the coil springs in the rear end, the air suspension, the eco diesel, constantly giving new significant updates. So it doesn't feel old. This thing absolutely feels like it belongs in 2017 and 2018. Now this engine we have, the 5.7 liter Hemi, it hasn't been touched for a while, and frankly it hasn't really needed to be touched. It makes 395 horse, 410 pound-feet of torque, and you know what, unlike the Ford, it's just great, linear, naturally aspirated power, and it sounds excellent. That's the issue with the Chevy. That 5.3 V8, it feels anemic, it doesn't put out power, and it doesn't sound that good. This V8 though, this one is a winner. Driving this Ram empty, the best way to describe it is heavy. You know, the steering is heavy, it likes to push wide through corners. Even in a straight line, it feels very planted, you know, very heavy into the ground. Now, I mean, in a way, it's not a great thing because it's kind of fatiguing behind the wheel, but it also provides just tons of confidence. It's nice to have that, you know, rooted to the ground feeling, especially when you're towing. And that was our experience with this truck while towing. With 7,000 pounds on the back, it just feels rooted to the ground. And then you have the coil springs and the air suspension giving you a nice, buttery smooth ride. So it just feels the most confident. And that's actually kind of funny because the one thing the coil springs do give up is payload rating and therefore towing. So this truck is only rated to tow 7,750 pounds. So we were actually pushing the limit further in this Ram, and yet it still felt the most confident of the bunch. But you know, that is a knock on this truck. If you do want to tow 10,000 pounds, don't get a Ram 1500, at least not one in this configuration. Another area where this Ram really excels, in my opinion anyways, is here in the interior. First of all, I just think this interior is the best one to look at. You get a lot of great materials, nice soft leather on the wheel, this wood grain up here on the wheel and in the dash. And more so than that, it's just simply laid out, kind of like the Silverado in that way, where everything is kind of, you know, easy to get to, but more than that, easy to recognize and see. In the F-150, as much as I like that interior, the center stack to me is just a little too busy. Too many little ugly plastic buttons, and the Ram has some of those too. For some reason though, the Ford just feels cheap when you touch it, and I don't get that feeling here in the Ram. And finally, let's get to off-roading. Well, first of all, this Ram has the exact same Goodyear Wrangler SRA tires that our Chevy Silverado does. Now, they're M+S rated, and they're fairly good. Again, maybe not quite to the level of a dedicated snow tire, but in my opinion, they're maybe 80% of the way there. They've been giving us tons of grip. So when you get off-road in the Ram, first thing I notice is how much nicer the ride is. And I think most of that can be chalked up to the air suspension and the coil springs. You just don't get the stiffness and the chatter out of this truck that you do in the other ones. And that is confidence inspiring. You want to feel like all four wheels are in contact with the ground at all times. But the absolute best feature of all is this four-corner air suspension. Now, it doesn't come on every single Ram, but we have it here on this limited model. And for off-roading, especially in a stock half-ton pickup truck, it's just really hard to argue with. You can drop this truck down by about half an inch to an inch to make sure you can fit in, you know, underground parking garages, but then you can lift the body by 2 inches. You know, you can't beat that when you're off-road. So granted, that doesn't change the axle, so you still have 9.3 inches of ground clearance up to your axle, which is just 0.1 worse than what you have in the Ford. And then when you go to standard height, the approach angle is 19.8 degrees, but lifted up into off-road 1 mode, you're gonna get 22.4 degrees, and then all the way lifted in off-road 2 mode, you're gonna get 24 degrees of approach angle. But all the way lifted up there in off-road 2 mode, you're also getting a 24.2 degree breakover angle, which is much better than the Ford's 21 degree. And when it's lifted, you're getting a departure angle of 27.8 degrees, once again beating out the F-150's 26 degrees. And then you have to consider the body ground clearance because that does matter. So in regular mode, you're at 9.4 inches, but all the way lifted, the body will go up to 11.4 inches. And there's a lot of situations where that might be the difference between you getting out, getting unstuck, and not. So yeah, the air suspension is great off-road, and you know, if you want it, you have to come to Ram to get it. There's no one else that offers air suspension right out of the box on a stock pickup truck. Best of all, it's not just for off-roading either. The air suspension here is self-leveling, so when you put weight in the bed or if you put a trailer on, it's going to pump itself up and find that level, help spread the weight around so you're not, riding up on an angle like that. Plus, there's a few more benefits. A, you can drop the truck down to lower your lift-in height if you're loading things into the bed. And sometimes, especially when you're hooking up trailers on uneven surfaces, it can be helpful to be able to lift or lower the back end so your hitch, kind of matches up with whatever your trailer tongue is. So to kind of sum it up, all of these trucks are good. They're all capable. They all towed the 7,000 pounds fairly well. We're kind of splitting hairs here to find out which one is the best. But when you're looking at them off-road, that actually, kind of gave a more clear picture of which one of these stock half tons is going to take you the furthest. It's also safe to say, if you're a real off-roader, you're gonna hit up the aftermarket to help you out. And there's tons of options for these pickups. But right out of the box, one of them did kind of emerge as a clear winner. If we're talking about the whole package, I'm driving home in the F-150. That truck tows confidently, has tons of great luxury features, and some really clever innovations on it. But today, we're looking at leaving the road. And when you combine the coil spring suspension, good off-road clearances, and airbags that can lift you up by inches, the winner of our comparison has to be the Ram 1500.